Today's focus is on two concepts. The first is black mold trading on Tesla. The second is uh, a concept called the Tesla effect, in which Tesla has now started destroying the value of high-end, mostly European cars in the secondary markets on sale as well as post-lease. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks for taking time out to join us today. If this is your first time on our channel, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. Now, we also want to thank our subscribers as well as our Patreon supporters, both of whom are greatly appreciated. If you like our show, please take time to at a minimum, do a like, because it has a great deal of impact. So we've actually decided to take a shoot today outdoors. So yes, sound isn't as good, but fall is rolling in, and this gives us an opportunity to pick up some of the color and sights and sounds of fall pre the winter kill zone. And speaking of that, there's a concept that we reviewed perhaps a month ago regarding trading relative to Tesla. What that is something we call black mold trading. So where the concept comes from is the fact that if you look in your bathroom, you'll notice that initially you had just perhaps a light colored, you had a very light colored mold there. And then over time, if you don't clean it away, the color of that mold can actually become what's called black mold. So what actually happens is a fairly non-toxic mold will start eating the grout, and then the longer that mold will actually start eating, and then different strengths or intensities of mold will attack to eat sort of that grout. And then you finally have what's called black mold, which is the most toxic, and it kills off all the others and is therefore able to eat, while the other less toxic molds do not. So when it comes to trading Tesla, what we're looking at right now is that we're basically 24 hours beyond Tesla's fantastic earnings announcement. Now, there are different groups of investors that hold the stock. The largest group of holders at 60% is something called institutional investors. So this might be a large institution in the form of a pension fund, or it could be a mutual fund. They're very patient investors. They tend to hold for long periods of time and don't necessarily bounce in and out of the stock. So I bring this up today because Tesla's stock price bouncing up 25 bucks in one day is unusual. And so what we think is happening right now is kind of a short squeeze. The names and faces won't be revealed for another couple of weeks. But in essence, what we see happening right now is that there are certain firms that were shorting the stock expecting it to drop. Other firms were expecting it to rise. Now, one of the things that's going on in sort of the black mold parlance is the fact that if there are certain firms that were short the stock, they have covenants that govern how much they can lose and how long they can maintain those losses before they're out of business. And what some of the large black mold traders will do, and they could be inside of an investment bank, or they could be just large traders who are part of non-investment bank, just have a lot of money to trade. What those folks can actually do is look at those that are in trouble and then institute trading methods that in essence destroy those companies. So the bottom line is that if you're short the stock, you end up with an interesting problem, which is as the stock rises, you have to figure out whether or not it's going to continue to rise, stay the same, or start to fall. If it starts to fall, you can buy it back cheaply in order to close out your position. If the stock continues to rise, you can't close out your position, and now you're in a really tough situation because you're losing money with every dollar uptick in the stock price. So another concept we reviewed previously is that Tesla, yes, is $50 billion, is a decent sized company, but if you're not over 100 billion, 200 billion in market cap, those smaller companies can easily be manipulated by people with great techniques and large amounts of money. So in a 2-3 day time frame, sort of the black mold trader group that I talk with you guys are about, they actually have the power to move the markets in a strong way and control that stock to do whatever they feel like doing at that time. And so as they do this, you basically end up with a tough position for those that are, like I said, short the stock. And Tesla, being one of the shortest stocks in the market, really influences how all this works. So as we shared previously, the process we're in right now is for the large institutions, it typically takes between 1 day and 48 hours for the analysts to actually analyze the data, what came out from Tesla, and then write a report and then distribute it to the large investors who rely on that information to determine how they're going to trade. So where we're at right now is that we're starting next week going to start seeing purchases related to how well Tesla is doing. And so what's basically going to happen is that once we get the large institutions weighing in on Tesla, this is when we believe the stock price could actually move northward, another $20, $30, $40 in just a few days. And it often will happen on no news. So all of a sudden you'll see the stock price moving, and basically you have large institutions with a large amount of dollars to invest saying, hey, this is a great place to put money, and right now we're in a great situation. Let's go ahead and pick up some more now before it moves further. And this can push the stock price up and establish new plateaus for the stock that, that the hedge fund managers who are short the stock will never be able to recover from. Now, there's about I want to call it 3 to 5% chance that as the large institutions start to buy, some of the black mold traders could actually use that opportunity to push that stock, very hard, meaning use their power to push the stock further, faster in the direction it's going, further exacerbating the need and creating more of a short squeeze. So this is an interesting circumstance. One of our viewers, Josh, just noted that the solar roof product is supposed to be released today, and that might have been an influencer on the 10% rise in the price of the stock. But nonetheless, we're still in the throes of people figuring out, were the numbers real on Tesla? How do we react to, the profit that they experienced versus the loss that was expected? There's a lot of news swirling related to earnings. And then when you throw in, other things like release of the solar roof, etc., it ends up being kind of, you're throwing fuel on a fire that's burning pretty hot. And so therefore you had this nice, so you basically have this sort of nice situation for looking at trading and in terms of what's going to happen. So as we shared, the opening of China combined with how well the company is already doing, combined with the demand they're seeing, combined with things like extending the length of time before you can get a new vehicle, are all signs that Tesla's experiencing solid demand for their products, and the customers are responding, etc. And so now we're seeing the stock respond, and don't be surprised if you see a nice bump in the value of the company over the next 2 or 3 weeks as all that I just described plays out. We've already had some comments shared. We're actually looking forward to your comments post-show on this, particularly if you do a lot of trading. The next thing we wanted to look at briefly is something called the Tesla effect. What that is that we kind of covered this already. Capital One is a large financier of cars, and what they're noticing is some interesting statistics. It turned out that approximately 30% or between 30 and 40% of the vehicles that are being traded in for Tesla vehicles are high-end, mostly German or European vehicles. And as those vehicles come in, they're now being sold at auction or put in the used car market. And this is creating an interesting problem where as you have a flood of anything, the value of each of the items that's being sold declines. So there are all kinds of problems. For example, one of the noted numbers provided by Forbes, who wrote this article, is the fact that there's actually a BMW 320i that sold in 2016 for $32,000. The value of the vehicle coming off lease with only 13,000 miles a year of usage is now dropping into the below $15,000 zone. So it's lost half its value in that 3-year period. And then they went through a number of other vehicles that experienced similar dramatic drops in value across Audi, VW, Mercedes, etc. So the success of Tesla and the growth of Model 3 sales is really impacting what's happening with large competitors from Europe. There was another number that I think you guys might have fun looking at. Los Angeles and California is the #1 concentration of Teslas, particularly Model 3s. And one of the things you might have fun looking at is something called Auto Trader. And you can there go to Auto Trader and look up pricing of vehicles there. And what you'll notice is that even after a year, I'm seeing 80-90% of the value retained on Model 3s rolling out with 15 or 20,000 miles. So it looks like Tesla is actually hitting on all cylinders, and resale value is often another measure on how well the company is doing. And it seems that this is another instance of it. So this also highlights why it is that we feel that Tesla's success is going to start hitting all the major luxury brands hard, because there are a lot of consumers that are rolling into Model 3s and S's and X's that previously owned some of the major names. And the longer they delay entering the electric world in a significant way, the higher the likelihood they lose a lot of market share. And Tesla is strengthened in the process. And so it's kind of fun to see the upstart, operate in this way. So we look forward to your comments on this part as well. One of the things other things we wanted to dive in is that we actually have fun taking a look at Bob Lutz and his comments on a regular basis on what's happening with Tesla. And in the Autoline interview we talked about before, one of the most shocking moments that was subtle that happened in his interview relative to Tesla was that when he articulated that Tesla is now outselling all the major German brands when it comes to the highest end vehicles, I think his statistics were slightly off. But basically what he pointed out was that the Europeans didn't expect that an American company could come to Europe and basically kick that much butt. I mean, the fact that they're losing sales, #1, and they're being outsold, #2, were kind of the things that he was concentrating on. And I was kind of shocked, because it was an amazing thing to see him discussing Americans showing the capabilities that they can have to compete with Europeans for a few reasons. #1, as you all know, GM couldn't make any money in Europe itself, so it actually sold its operations in Europe to Opel. And so I just was kind of shocked by this. #2, it's very clear that he's familiar with the fact that most of the U.S. brands or makes have been unable to compete in Europe for a long time, which was part of the reason why they sold out. #3, there's a mystery about Bob Lutz that I still don't understand, that I think is fascinating. And it's not just Bob Lutz, it's really about GM. And that is that the Chevy Bolt is being shut down in the United States systematically, or I believe it is already shut down. What's amazing about that is that when the Bolt came out, as GM was selling its European operations, there was actually a waiting list of 3,000 people in Europe trying to buy the Chevy Bolt. So Chevy Bolt, but with the European name on it. So I was blown away by the fact that I've actually spoken with GM executives that are friends of mine, and they're like, the Bolt is actually a pretty good car, and it just hasn't gotten the love it deserves from different entities. And so I was just kind of shocked, because it's a decent car, but the problem was it was really a compliance vehicle. meaning that they were forced to produce them to try to offset some of the gains they have in selling SUVs, et cetera. And so, other than maybe torturing Tesla a little bit and some other things, I guess the bottom line was there wasn't a real strong effort to make it a successful execution, and hence we're seeing the outcome that we're talking about. As we covered in our previous show, Bob Lutz did indicate that one of the mistakes they made was to introduce this vehicle as a Chevy and not a Cadillac, because he argues that their goal was to make the price as low as possible so environmentalists would be interested, and they didn't at all think that well-to-do folks would be interested in vehicles that were fuel efficient or EVs in this fashion. And so therefore the thought was to put it in the Chevy line at that level of trim and not let it stretch out in a larger vehicle like a Cadillac. I thought that was an interesting comment, because China is actually getting real Cadillacs that are EVs now, especially because of all their rules. And so, we'll keep you posted on what the info is on this, but we thought it was kind of interesting. Yeah, indeed. Thanks for the comment, Per, at the end here. He indicated that the German firms are in a lot of trouble right now for a bunch of reasons, and we have to agree with that. We're heading towards our sort of early ending today, and just wanted to note, keep an eye out for Tesla. Don't be surprised if you see a nice bump in the stock value over the next week for the reasons we described earlier in the show. We also are looking forward to any and all comments post-show. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great weekend. Reminder, don't go to bed within 4 hours of eating, preferably, but 2 hours if possible, and 25 leg lifts per leg. Make sure that you strengthen the quad muscles so that you don't have any issues with knees and so forth as age hits. At any rate, Josh just announced it hit 330, so it's up $30 today. So that's 10%. So congratulations to Tesla. Smells like a short squeeze to me. Hang in there with your shares. I think you'll be impressed with the increased values that we're going to see in the near term. Once again, thanks for taking time out to join us. Tschüss in German. Wie geht's? Verstehst noch im Ausfallbeinen. Tschüss in French, au revoir. Lehitrot in Hebrew. Choda Hafez Farsi. In Hedge Swedish. Ni hao ma Chinese. Zdravstvuyte Russian. And in Jamaica we say, enough respect, walk good, man. Have a great day. Bye for now. Thanks for joining us. And please remember to like and subscribe.